Hey, welcome to the Boundaried Boss Babes podcast. I'm Erin Anderson, your host, and I am so excited that you are here joining me today for another episode. If you're a female entrepreneur just like me, you understand that everything you build, everything that you have comes from relationships. And because of that, you also understand that relationships require really great boundaries. Hence the reason why we have this podcast, so that way you can take your business and your life to the next level. So sit back, relax, and get ready for another episode of the Boundaried Boss Babes podcast. Hey, I'm so excited you're here for the Boundaried Boss Babes. This is our absolute first episode. I'm crazy excited for it, you guys, because we've got some really, really great content coming for you in this episode or in these episodes in general. And please, please, please help keep this podcast going by bringing in questions to the podcast that you would love answered either by me or one of our group experts. And we will have other people coming on and being guest experts on this show as well. And so these are some things that you can definitely be watching for. But let me tell you a little bit, like some of the things we're going to be talking about in this particular podcast is we're going to be talking about how to earn money, why your relationships are key to understanding what your money blocks are, and also key in understanding how to create the 6 or 7 figures that you are actually wanting to create. We're going to be talking about how your relationship with yourself is so essential. We're going to be talking about your relationship with God is also very essential. Um, and so lots of different really, really good things coming up. And now you might say, well, that sounds like 4 podcast episodes maybe, right? Well, there's a lot that goes into relationships, boundaries, money, time, all of these different things happening in your relationships that once you start understanding what's really happening, you can actually go on and create more for your life, because I'm really passionate about helping women not just heal their relationships, because as you guys probably know, I came from betrayal trauma coaching to this, and I'll explain why in just a second. Um, and so I understand like helping women heal their relationships, but I also really am passionate about helping women create money for themselves, whether it is because they need to, be completely self-reliant, or maybe it's because they want to do something that they've never done before and that's going to take some money or some capital or some finances, and that they don't have to rely on uh begging somebody else for making sure that that decision is okay, right? We need to feel relaxed. We need to feel trustful. We need to feel safe, because a true feminine is someone who can relax into her space, her energy, and her mission and purpose, right? And that's very hard to do when we're feeling like we have all of these cogs that are not solid, not safe, and like we don't have that freedom to be able to do that. And the thing is I've noticed as I was coaching my betrayal trauma clients that once they started healing their relationships, they would go on to create like 3 or 4 times what they paid me in their businesses and in their lives. Like even if they weren't a an entrepreneur, like they created a lot more if they were, but even if they weren't an entrepreneur, somehow money showed up for them. And they were always baffled. For an example, I had one gal by the time that we were done coaching together, and she wasn't an entrepreneur at that time, she is now, but she created an extra $3,000 a month because she had freed up the energy space and the mental space to be able to get in and revamp their finances. She had like literally a couple of miraculous things happen. And by the time we were done coaching, she had $3,000 extra a month. And it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing to see. And I kept seeing things like that happening. And so I said to myself, you know what? That's really interesting. That healing relationships creates cash. And so I tried these tactics on, a couple other clients, and even without saying anything about money, it still created money for them. And so I started diving deeper into this concept, and I'm like, you know what? Everything uh, that we get in our life is somehow tied to our relationships. Everything we receive, every good thing, everything we're grateful for is somehow tied to our relationships. If you think about it, like the person that is working in a restaurant, right? Their paycheck comes from the relationship they've created with their employer. If you're an entrepreneur, your paycheck comes from the relationships you've created with your clients. Um, but I've also noticed that the relationships that maybe aren't as clear actually have a delay in payment. For an example, like sometimes it can take people a long time to get a tax return because we don't have a specific relationship with the tax office, right? And so I'm talking like when we have really, really good solid relationships, money does tend to flow to us. And especially if we're being feminine and relaxed about it, hence the reason why we've got the Boundaried Boss Babe podcast, right? Money does tend to flow and we're able to relax when we feel safe in our space and our relationships. Now, the other thing too is I realized that, I also wanted to really focus on female entrepreneurs because they're the leaders. Like moms are leaders and they're entrepreneurs in general, right? But someone who's actually really intentional about creating money is also someone who's very intentional about creating their relationships. And so I noticed that a lot of female entrepreneurs, they started coming to me and talking to me about like where the bottlenecks were in their business. And I started listening to their stories, and 99% of the time I could trace it back to some type of a relationship that showed up a certain way in their lives and taught them something that was just completely untrue. Because, any type of trauma tends to download in our brain almost kind of like a virus. And if you think about like a computer virus and how it's downloaded into like your hardware, it takes some time to clean that up, right? So that way the computer can actually function properly. Well, trauma does the same thing. It downloads a virus in our brain that takes some time to maybe clean up so that way our brain and our energies and our spaces can actually work properly. The other thing I started noticing too, as they were talking about their relationships, how I could hear certain types of boundaries that weren't working for them or that they didn't realize weren't working for them. And so I decided to kind of do an experiment on entrepreneur women. And once we started cleaning up their boundaries, their money started cleaning up as well, their money story, and they started making more sales and they started creating more loyalty in their clientele and in their client base. And they again started to feel more safe and have more freedom because they were living a certain standard in their boundaries. So that's part of the reason why I decided to shift from just betrayal trauma coaching into helping entrepreneur women in their businesses, is because I feel like, because everything is tied to our relationships, the more entrepreneur women, especially where they're having such a major outreach, just not like not just in their family, but also in uh their businesses and their outreach. Because of that, like if I can help them see boundaries, understand boundaries, and teach like how to have really, really great relationships, they can also in turn help their clients and the people that they serve have the same things. And so I felt like serving the leaders of the communities would probably be a better idea. But one thing that I noticed is that these leaders do not uh, necessarily connect with the idea that of betrayal trauma, and it's because their mindsets are not in that victim mentality. They're more in the results type of mentality. They want certain results. They want to see what those results are. They're more clear with what those results are. And they just want to know the how-tos. And I started realizing that a lot of those how-tos were in the way that their relationships were either A, showing up, or B, being created. And I also started realizing that a lot of the way that they spoke about their relationships was also a lot of the way that they spoke about like their money stories. Um, Believing somewhere, oh, let me give you an example, okay? So I have a or had a client, I should say, that she had a really, really volatile business partnership where she brought this partner on. The partner was supposed to do certain things, and the partner just didn't do those things. And so it left my client with all of this work to do, right? And she was feeling really, really frustrated with the client. She had, certain ideas about the client. She had a certain mindset about not about the client, sorry, but about her partner. And that caused the inaction from the partner plus the mindset that my client had about the partner caused quite a bit of tension and friction to happen. And one of the things I realized as she was talking was that this particular partner mirrored some of her money story. And part of that money story was that she would have to do everything to get what she wanted. She had to work extra hard to get a dollar. And so that partner mirrored for her that belief. But she didn't realize it. It's honestly something that we're not very conscious of. And so once she started working on this belief that actually, you know what? I can create money easily, effortlessly, and it comes to me willingly. It was really amazing to watch how this partner actually just kind of decided she didn't want to do the partnership anymore and chose out, giving my personal client with almost no effort freedom to be able to move forward in her business and in her life, and to also give forgiveness to this client, or this partner, I should say. Um, she was able to release this partner with no hard feelings. she was able to be at peace with the partner, and all of a sudden, like, the release of the ideas and the peace and the forgiveness of the way that she had been showing up for herself and the way that money had been showing up for her, um created more for her. And it's this whole concept that whenever we're ready to move something new in, we have to clear out the old. And I know, you're a boundary boss, babe. This is not something new. You've heard this many times, right? But what we're not conscious of is how often we're still trying to stack the new furniture onto the old furniture when we're not actually taking a look at, like, if you have a financial goal, maybe you have a goal to go to the Bahamas, or you have a goal to take your family somewhere, or whatever it is, right? Or maybe you have a goal to get in and do more marketing, like whatever the goal is. If we take a look at the belief around relationships tied to what that goal is, because marketing is a relationship thing, right? Goals are a relationship thing, even if it's just a relationship with yourself. Your other inner relationships and your outer relationships benefit off of the relationship that you have with yourself massively. And so I'm seeing, like, I saw, like, all of these things happening in the boss babe community, how they'd have this goal and it was taking them years to achieve it because they would see someone else as being the issue. And I'm not saying, like, that person definitely could not have shown up better. No, absolutely. But the thing is they once I helped her realize, like my client, that the business partner was actually not the one responsible for her goal, my client's goal, that she was 100% responsible for her goal. She was looking at the business partner as the person that was standing in her way, so she could not accomplish it. And she held that belief for 2 years, causing a major friction. So once she started changing the belief around that and belief around the business partner, she started seeing the good things. She started talking in a loving way. Um, and she built the relationship with the business partner. It was amazing to see how easily that business partner was ready to kind of get out of the way because she felt respected. She felt heard. She felt understood. And a personal story, I actually had, I mean, she wasn't really somebody that was in the way of anything, to be honest with you, right? But, like, we can't expect everybody to always like us and everybody to always love us, right? But there's one person that I'm thinking of particularly in my life right now, um, who has been less than kind in a lot of their interactions with me. And that's okay. That's neither here nor there, right? But, like, she would try to get involved in my relationships. She would try to get involved in my business, but from the stance of an adversary. She wanted to destroy my chances of having this or that, or she wanted to try to disrupt my goal. Like, that's literally what she was in my life trying to do. She would judge me, she would gossip about me, she would tell lies about me, like all of these things, right? And I would get really frustrated with her, and I had this viewpoint of her that she she had basically made her bed, she would have to sleep in it. Um, because the people she would gossip to didn't listen to her, obviously. Like, I'm a person that's very blessed with very loyal friends and a loyal following. And so they didn't listen. They didn't believe her. And I'm glad because she was just trying to communicate that she had an issue with me, right? To people that didn't have an issue with me. But when I realized that I could be adversarial towards her, or I could be kind. That didn't mean I was going to allow her to step all over me. And it didn't mean that I was going to change my, like, the belief of truth. And it didn't mean that I was going to say something that was untrue. But because I wanted truth in my life, I also realized that there's still good in her. And that I wanted to respect that. And so once I started doing that, then I started finding the good in her and, mentioning it to her. It was really amazing to see how she shifted also towards me because I didn't allow her to manipulate me. I was too uh, ingrained in the truth. And but I also didn't allow my personal bias manipulate me either. And even though like she wasn't really a threat to me, it was really amazing how she started speaking about me very differently and in a good way. And even though, like, again, she wasn't a threat, but I believe in assets, especially in business. We want assets in our relationship. Every single relationship we have can either be an asset or a detriment. Well, she became more of an asset the more respect I showed her. Even if she chose not to give me respect, I still chose to respect her. Because when we operate from a space of truth, people that want to operate in a space of truth come around us. But if we want to operate in a space of gossip or drama or frustration or anything like that, or protection of ourselves, that's kind of what we start seeing in other people, and that's what we start to attract because whatever is going in our mind is what we look for in other people. And how we show up for ourselves is often how other people show up for us. So the boundaried boss babes, I realized really needed to be born because the way a boundaried boss babe shows up for herself is key to changing not only her business and her life and the lives of her clients, but also the way the world views boundaries and success, truth, relationships, and it's how we get things back on track. So, my loves, I'm so excited you're here listening to the Boundaried Boss Babes. And I truly would love to help you solve some of your bottlenecks in your business and life. So please, text the show. Let me know what kind of questions you guys have. If you're watching this on YouTube or hearing this on YouTube, let me know in the comments below. Like, what is it that you're looking for and how I can possibly help you. And you're even welcome to share with me your stories, right? So, my loves, until the next time, well, actually, before I sign off, let me also tell you guys this. I am going to be starting a new boundary program. So if you're wondering what the Magic 7 are and you know for a fact that your boundaries need some serious work, feel free to also click on the link below in the description of this podcast And let's get you scheduled with a one-on-one session with me. I will help you clarify your boundaries and give you 1 or 2 boundaries to work on out of the 7. And that's a completely free call. If you're also interested in working more with me, there's also a clarity call link below, and we can hop on a clarity call and I can tell you what that would look like to work with me as well. All right, my loves, I'm super excited again for this new podcast. I'm super excited that you're here for these new beginnings. And I hope that from listening to this podcast, not only do your relationships show up more true, more authentic for you, that you get to show up more true and authentic for yourself, and your money reflects every bit of that yumminess. Okay, my loves. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Bye. All right, Boundary Boss Babes. I'm super excited that you tuned in with me today. Make sure you tune in again next week as we chat about more Boundary Boss Babe topics. We're going to get into so many other things about how to set boundaries with your business, how to set boundaries with your relationships, so you can truly have the time, the money, and the flexibility that you are seeking. So tune in next week. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Let your other Boss Babe friends know about it. And also, if you've got any questions, make sure you submit them into the podcast by clicking on the send us a text message at the bottom of the podcast description. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. See you later, Boss Babes.